Alright, hey guys, what's up? This is Cyclonic here, bringing you guys a special edition of the Design Critiques, episode 9, this time featuring another critique, another co-host, I should say, Stephen Halphen from Cavs Legion GC. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
What's up, everybody? As you guys know, I'm the head graphic designer for Cavs Legion GC, and I'm really excited to kind of get into this and review some of y'all's work from the community.
Alright, so you guys know the drill here. These are our opinions, obviously, from all the experience we've had working within graphic design. So feel free to consider them, maybe incorporate them in your work moving forward. So without further ado, we'll get started. This graphic here is by Jack. It's a Twitter header for Timely Cook of the Raptors. I really like the setup here. I think it's a whole clean setup here. He didn't put any social medias that weren't necessary, stuff like that. What are your initial thoughts on this?
One thing I like really stood out was kind of the background and how it's two images and it's really merged together well in the sense of it almost looks like one image in my eyes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so I think maybe the one thing, or one thing to start off with as a critique is that I don't know if there's a reason to separate the Raptors text from the logo like this, and especially then have it right aligned here. I might personally just move the logo down here with the text and maybe move it down a little more and center it. Um, One thing from me there.
yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, interesting to put the logo on the far right next to the text in a way.
Yeah.
But I also really do kind of like the text underneath the Cook's arms. So like the little 4-piece text. Can you zoom in on that a little bit?
Oh yeah, the one on the left side.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah. I would say one thing maybe to kind of look at is like placement of those. Like not all of them are spaced as equally as they could be. But I do like the variation of different colors, different like having stroke, not stroke, having the different like variations of colors. Like that's really nice.
Yeah, that was another thing I liked as well. I guess to me the only downside to that was it seemed kind of random to just have it here
Yeah.
and then have no other sort of paraphernalia, I guess, around. It just seemed like a one-off thing that looks cool on its
hmm
own, but I think I would have wanted to see a little bit more. If you're going to go with this sort of theme, make it a little more prevalent in the other sides, especially since the rest of it is so clean and there's not that much there. Um,
Yeah, that's one thing I want to point out too. Is like it's kind of basic and it lacks a little bit of pizzazz or like depth to it. Like I see a little bit of like a texture
mhm.
on it, which is kind of nice. It spices it up a little bit, but I think there's a lot of ways you can incorporate like logos and various things to create marks that just kind of help elevate a design a little bit.
Yeah, and especially when you're trying to design like headers for a team, like at some point, and they've already started doing this, they're going to do their best to not look like other teams. So the more generic
hmm
the piece, the harder it is for them to separate themselves with their branding. And so that's something they're looking for if they're trying to pick up any graphics people, that these people can try and help them differentiate themselves
Yeah,
from the rest of the teams.
yeah, that's one thing we do at Legion very well that I think a lot of other teams could kind of do better is kind of separate themselves from graphic wise, like to the community and kind of stand out in their own way.
Yep. All right, so, but yeah, overall, well done, Jack. It's a good start, I think. I think, like Steven said, you could add a few more things in here and fix some of these organizational things. But other than that, I like where this is headed. Um,
Yeah.
so okay, I guess Photoshop loves just booting me to the end of whatever I have, so we'll go ahead
Hey,
and it's
as
one of
long
the
as it
few
works.
yeah. All right, so this one is I guess like just a general promotional piece by Bauer for Duck of Next Gaming.
hmm
I think it's a nice piece. Kind of has like that like magazine advertisement kind of feel,
Yeah.
which I really like. One thing I'll start with pointing out that got me initially was that these shadows on the feet, make it look like they're floating and not exactly standing on the ground,
Hmm.
which kind of threw me off initially.
Yeah, one thing you really want to do with shadows on the ground is kind of like it gets really dark underneath the foot, like right underneath, and then there's not too much around the actual foot. So you kind of have like a circle that goes around the foot, but you want something more of where there's a contact point. You want it like almost black, but like a kind of like really low hardness, but like black kind
Hmm.
of mark. So that way it makes it look like there's contact and they're not just floating a couple inches off the ground.
Yeah, and especially if you have such a flat back, like it doesn't help that it's just a pure orange flat background. You could probably
Yeah.
try and put some sort of like rectangle around here and fade it out so it looks like there's more of like a
Hmm.
ground, like a platform to stand on, and then whatever plain backdrop you want to put behind there, that would probably help things there.
Hmm.
The next thing that I'm seeing is that it's a fairly orange piece, and there's not that much blue lighting anywhere, or not that much like a lighting source. But the lighting on the edges of both BD and Duck is pretty blue. So
Yeah.
I might try and change that to like orange, or just lessen the amount of lighting on them.
Yeah, maybe one thing is to either change the color of the light, which might be kind of hard depending on like what other like colors end up changing. Like, does their face skin tone change? Do you want it to change? It could, couldn't. But one thing that might kind of help with that like lighting issue is that was some things I kind of ran into last season with like some like studio photos and stuff. Like the
Hmm.
lighting would always come out like red or blue because
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
kind of lights they have going. So one thing I try to do to kind of fix that is like just make the image black and white, and then uh, kind of make it one color, or just make it both like black and white even, or just like make the whole image itself one color to kind of help
Ye-
get rid of that kind of blue glow or red glow or whatever color the light is it's on it.
Yep, yep, definitely. That's also something I try to do that sometimes because it'll really help, especially
Uh-huh.
because there's so many different colors on the teams. So like trying to make those general graphics, like it tends to help make everything like a monotone um, color scheme. I like the abstract kind of text and patterns around here. Maybe it would, if you're gonna have arrows specifically, make sure all of them are pointing to where you want them to point, like these two in
Hmm.
particular, have them point towards the two people as well. I was actually, there was something that intrigued me. Do you like the color of the text?
mm, I don't hate it. I wish so. There seems to be like a light source in the back, kind of, that looks like that they made. Do you
The
see it? Like a
w-
little glow that comes like from the dead center of the back. Like it's light, but it's not there that much.
on my monitor it might be. I think I kind of see it is a little bit lighter, or in the like there's some like whitish kind
And
of thing in
and it
there.
and it kind of like goes over the text too
Hmm.
on the bottom. So maybe like so if just thinking of like in terms of like spatial relations, if the light comes behind the text and it comes to the front of it, it really wouldn't have that big of a glow over top of the text. So it would kind of have it wouldn't be as like harsh as it kind of is right now. So one thing I would try to do is probably like lessen that a little bit to
Hmm.
kind of make it wrap around the very edge of the text instead of just like blast through like almost to the middle of it.
Yeah, I was something that I've seen a lot of graphics, and like people tend to use the darker colors for the text, and there's so many pieces where I wish they would have just gone white text to make it pop.
Hmm.
And I'm starting to wonder if I would want the same thing here with this, just to be just be white text, because like straight up dark blue on orange, if without the white, I don't know, it kind of throws me off a little
Hmm.
bit. Same way I don't use like the two K League colors without white separating them. Um,
Yeah,
so that might be a small thing. I like the social media inclusion with the logos, a simple way to do that, but still have it be noticeable. Um, I do
yeah,
like that
that's true.
part.
Yeah, it's yeah, it might be interesting to see that white, but at the same time, like, yeah, I think having a certain amount of blue at once is kind of good to have too.
Yeah, that's fair. Yep. All right.
Um,
So yeah, but yeah, overall, like I mentioned with Jack Bauer, this is a good start as well to stuff. I think you can do a little bit more with it to make it a little more I guess like make it make sense. I guess is the best way I'd put it. Make the scene make a little more sense. But
mhm.
again, like where this is headed. Um, all right, let's do this. All right, so this is a Lakers gaming schedule done by Dane. Um, so I like the overall organizational setup. But the first thing that catches me is that I'm starting to look more at the background of these squares than I actually am at the logos.
Mhm. Yeah, I kind of get that vibe too. I think one thing that might help with that, and that's one thing I've come into issues with like things in the background of like headers or anything like that. Like it's okay to make it literally 5 opacity because like it's there, but like it's not overpowering anything in the foreground.
Yep, yep, I would agree with that. Next thing that I will point out on my end is that all of the text that you have here, there's not a single white text on this graphic.
Yeah.
It's a very overloaded yellow graphic with I mean the logos help, but there are also a lot of black in the logos.
Hmm.
I think maybe the best option here, because yellow is a tough color to play with on the background for a lot of these teams, and like black on the yellow, I'm not sure I'm a big fan of that. I'd probably have just gone with a white background on these, and then use a
Hmm.
normal, or just go black on all the logos, and
Yeah.
then you can still your gold text looks a little less overpowering that way.
I would, excuse me. I would almost make the date and stuff uh, white
Hmm.
and just leave the logos kind of how they are. Lower the opacity on the back logo. I mean, the back logo is like a great idea to like add like depth to it. It's just, they just pop a little too much.
Yep.
Um, and another issue I see is kind of like um, there's you get kind of confused reading the date and the time because it kind of blends together.
Yep.
So almost I would almost adjust the kerning for the like I wouldn't put a space from 7 to PM maybe, and
Hmm.
like it might separate it a little bit better. Because it kind of just looks like I kind of got confused at first, just glancing at it, and I was like, wait, it says like the date and the time. I was
Yeah.
like, it's just too far from like the PM.
Yep, I definitely agree with that part. It's in that's why I've been, as a general note to the viewers, I've been stressing a lot. Like if you have different types of info to be putting on there, make it clear somehow visually to whoever's viewing
Hmm.
it that they're different categories of information. Helps a lot with like helping your brain read through and make sense of the graphic. At least it does that for me. So it's an effort I try to make.
Yeah.
And there's multiple once you get a sort of like toolbox going, like you can put some strokes on some text, have boxes behind some things. Like there's a whole toolbox you'll sort of start to develop that you can use for any of these informational
Hmm.
graphics. So I think that's something that everyone should like focus on trying to develop. Then the last thing I think I'll say on, or I guess the last two things, over here, I personally don't go and look up things by their URL like this. I will just
Hmm.
head to the main site that I'll already have like in my history and then just type in the username somewhere. And that's even more convenient on phones because you'll already have the app most likely. So I don't see the reason to have the full link like right here and add more text. I would rather have the youtube.com, the Twitch part just be logos, and that's visually easier, I think,
Hmm.
to go ahead and go to those links to watch them play, and then
Yeah.
move this time and Pacific thing somewhere where it's more visible. Um,
Yeah.
Especially because a lot of the viewers are Eastern time. No one's looking up here and seeing this note here, unless they're
Hmm.
really looking at the graphic hard. If I see 4 p.m., I'm probably thinking, oh, they might have just made it easier for everyone on the eastern coast. And I'm gonna go check at 4 p.m. and realize it's not playing. So
Yeah, I would say as far as the links go, it really depends where the graphic's going. If it's something that's I would say like printed out or something. If it's something that's like in a tweet, like I almost wouldn't even put a link. Like it's not worth it because you could put the link in the tweet.
yep.
Or if it's maybe on a website, maybe you click it and it takes you there. Like sometimes like you won't even need the link to be there. But if it's like, let's say like if it's a printout or a poster that's gonna be hung up like around a facility or something, sometimes it's nice to have the logo with the URL ending. But I will say with something that's not like a generic kind of streaming platform or like social media, it's definitely nice to have a link
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
just because people wouldn't know exactly where to go for that information.
Right, right. I definitely agree with that part right there. And the like another downside, I guess, to posting, or another reason you wouldn't need to post the link is that you can't hyperlink images.
Mm,
So if you had that ability, it would make more sense. Just make the graphic a self-containing thing that you could just have anywhere, and you wouldn't need the associated tweets or anything like that. But since we don't have that capability, uh, I think it's important to keep less text on the image if possible.
yeah.
Okay, so oh, I guess one quick last thing because I think this is an actually important general note. You can't really see the Lakers gaming text over here on the top left side. Um, so what I usually try to do for that is move this image down a little lower and then have it fade out towards the top, so you always know you always know you're working either with a light or a dark background. You can choose the appropriate logo. Um,
Hmm.
that's usually what I try to do, especially if I'm making like template style graphics. Um, but feel free to chip in on how you'd go about dealing with that.
I would almost say just use the star and like not even add the text because the text at that point is so small. Like gaming is so small, like it's almost like it's almost not even worth like putting the text part in the graphics. So I would almost just use the primary team logo and just pop that in.
Hmm.
I would almost say the same thing for the schedule graphic as well. Like it's cool to have the name in it and stuff, but like I mean, most people who are reading the graphic or want to be like interested in the graphic know exactly what like teams are just based off their logo. So that's like another idea is just kind of using the icon instead of the text.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the only drawback to that is that I think at least the league always instructs us to use global logos because people
Yeah.
don't know the teams that well necessarily. I guess maybe from a league perspective, it's more important to be as broad
Hmm.
demographic as possible, but the teams themselves don't need to be as they don't need to focus as much on that possibly. I guess.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
In which case,
I
then
mean,
yeah,
that
it would
makes a lot of
definitely make
sense.
sense. Uh, Okay, so good work on that, Dane. Good start again. Let's see, what do we have here? Okay, this is a non 2K League piece, but still very sports oriented poster here for Devin Booker by Prims. Or I guess I realized it's Problems, the shortened version of Problems, so that was interesting. But was not expecting that. But yeah, I like this piece. The main thing that catches me though, without looking any deeper into this piece, is it doesn't necessarily pop off the page to me. It's a clean piece and it's there, but I don't necessarily. There's nothing that would pull my eyes to it if I just saw it scrolling down the feed.
Yeah, it's to me it's kind of flat. But it could be fixed with a couple things. I think it almost seems like there's just like a flat like filter almost over the entire image. Like
Yep.
I would almost just get rid of that, up the contrast, add a couple highlights because like you could see on some of the pictures he's got like sweat highlights, like make those really pop. Kind of try to catch some that like those things like that'll catch people's eye.
Yep. Yep.
And another thing, he's kind of floating. Like
Yes, yes, that was gonna be. If you didn't say anything, that was gonna be my next thing.
like
This
like
bottom book is definitely floating.
like you put a floor there and then made them float. So like either scratch the floor entirely or make him have more some sort of like contact with the ground.
hmm Maybe another thing you can do is that this star doesn't need to be completely orange. You might be able to make the since Phoenix also has the yellow portion of it. The yellow I think would really help this graphic if it was included just as like a slight accent here and there. So maybe make this outline, this outer outline, a yellow. And then also this Devon on the right side. He is the only one it looks like that doesn't have the brighter CC tones on him. He's just a flatter gray, while these other bookers have that gray, but they also have some white highlights. Um, so that
Mm-hmm.
would help a smaller nitpick there.
Yeah, that could be just the image, but at the same time, like you can add highlights, like you can
Yes.
paint. Like one thing I think a lot of people are scared of doing, especially with like any sort of photo editing or manipulations like this, like added, like these are obviously like photos that he cut out and like added. So like one thing that I think a lot of people are like kind of I don't know afraid to do or they don't do as much is like you can physically paint the person and it'll still look very good. Like if you wanted like a white highlight on his shoulder, you could just kind of
Drop a brush
color
in there.
yeah, you could color grab from other highlights on the poster and just kind of like hard brush it in, kind of blend it a little bit, and like you can make it work. And I think that's one thing that's very not very utilized with designs like this.
Yeah, and I think it's a pitfall that because I'm starting to try and get myself into this type of work as well, and it's a pitfall that I've fallen into as well. I think a lot of people from at least this community might just generally apply CCs and stuff to like the
Mm-hmm.
images and hope that alone will get the job done. They don't dive into that next level of individually touching up specific images. And that's kind of the next step that you don't have to feel afraid in doing. Yes, it kind of reduces like maybe the modularity of the image if that's the proper word here, like how changeable stuff is. You kind of tend to maybe bake stuff in a little more than you want to, but it's an important part of making these graphics take the next step. It's not just like a cookie cutter,
Yeah,
put the CC template on, and you're done with it kind of deal.
yeah.
Um,
I would say almost tweak every like if you were to go through each of these individual players and kind of tweak each photo, I would do like a very light tweaking and get them kind of to where you want them, and then tweak the whole image as one whole image. So that way you don't like you said over bake anything and kind of add too much effect to something. Like always do slight tweaks on the person and then or slight tweaks on the image and then as an overall graphic tweak that so that way like even if you just did them all as a group
mhm.
just one final like bringing everything together kind of tweak so that way there's no like over baking or like anything that's just making it seem too off.
Yeah, and then that way everything also kind of once you get them to where you want to, all the additional ones will just carry the same effect on everyone. So there's no real discrepancies there, hopefully. Um,
Mm-hmm.
all right, so we'll move on to this one. This is a header for Nudini, now of Wizard District Gaming by I believe Landis, if memory serves me right. Um, so I like the overall setup here. Couple things that instantly get me are that with how detailed the background is, the kerning here throws me off a bit because it's like there's stuff getting in between that kind of
Mm-hmm.
makes it a little tougher for me to read. And then second portion of that is that this banner isn't, I mean, this header isn't adaptable to the rest of the people on the team because not all of them have a W in their name that you can replace with that. So from just like a basic branding perspective, that becomes a warning flag for me.
Yeah, I think I'd almost think it's not the right typeface to use. I think it there needs to be something that matches the logo more because I do like the addition to the logo uh as part of the like name. It's kind of cool, but
hmm
I think it doesn't match at all, and I think it'll look better if you just kind of change it.
Yeah, probably some text is like a little thicker and has more corner based stuff. All low key, I don't necessarily like the font that much, but outage might be a slightly better fit. I'm assuming there's probably better text out there in general, but like outage would start to go in the right direction. I'd feel like almost. Um,
Yeah, or even something similar. Because kind of all the logos were like based off of outage in a way,
yep.
so it wouldn't be a bad idea to use that, or maybe something similar.
Hmm.
The subtext is definitely like that should be that
Yep.
font, like that's perfect.
Yep.
Um,
I would almost recommend here though lowering the spacing again. Um,
mm-hmm.
with this, I mean, you could also change the background a bit. I see what he's done here with opening the W for the image, and I like all of that. It's just that combined with how spaced out the text is, just makes stuff harder to read for me.
Yeah, I almost say just like add a blur, like a very slight, but like a blur or something. Like I don't know, maybe something different just to kind of separate it from the foreground because it does stick out, like you said.
Hmm.
Um, but other than that, like yeah,
And
I don't
then,
really know what to do.
yeah, I I wonder how it would look without the W there, or even better, there's two things that I think make it conflict for me. Is that one, the background is blue with predominantly red lining, and that red lining won't interfere with white text, but as soon as you put this
Mhm.
lighter blue in here with the white stroke, it instantly calls attention to that piece, and then that white stuff is what I think is really throwing me off with white text. So I feel like, and the blues don't necessarily match between the
Yeah,
picture and the background. So what I'd almost do is maybe go like a
very true.
darker blue on here that matches the hue, and then make this lining red. Or you might not even need the lining honestly on it. Maybe a really subtle
Yeah,
part of the background. That might be how I would fix that.
yeah. I say it's very close to being. I wouldn't say perfect, but like complete. I
Hmm.
think it just needs a little title tweak and maybe a little background tweak.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit more of blending the image into the background, like the side, like the picture of him on the right, because I think that kind of stands out a little bit. It almost just looked like there was no sort of like color correction or anything on it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you mean. I thought you were talking about background. I realized you meant the
oh no,
foreground.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Any
the
sort of
foreground.
lighting. Any sort of lighting
Yes,
would
some
probably.
sort of lighting or like a glow around them, or like I don't know, something a little bit different.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, just to kind of make it flow a little bit better. But yeah.
Hmm. Okay. So I think that will take care of this one. All right, next one. This one I really liked. I think there's still some stuff you can do to fix it. It's done by Jeeve. Uh, but I really liked where this was headed. I'll let you start off with what you think on this one.
Okay. Well, I thought it was terrible. No, I'm just kidding. So I really liked the kind of sectioning off of the background and how where you have text, it's not too busy. Like there's not that much behind it that kind of interferes with it. I would say the subtext color's kind of iffy.
Yes. Yep.
The main text is good, like pretty solid. Subtext is kind of iffy. The pen tooling of himself is actually solid.
Yep.
Like GG's on the hair.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
as as well as like the kind of like what I was kind of trying to explain with like the last one, like the color correction on the person, like highlights and stuff, and like I think you kind of nailed it with that one.
Yep. Um, I think for me, I guess touching on all of those points Steven just made,
Mhm.
this text here, yeah, that was one of the first things that I noticed if I wanted to try and improve the header was that dark red on dark blue, not the move. This one is is still readable, which
Yeah.
is nice, but you have this darker gray you're putting under the graphic here. I think like somewhere in this gradient, if you do a color picking here and make that the text, it's not the full
Hmm.
white, but it'll be light enough to create more contrast and fit in better with this. I would
Like
think.
a bright silver.
Yes, exactly what I was trying to go for. Bright silver, I think, would really help with this text, and the font and all looks solid here. My with the pictures, I really like this left steez, and I almost feel like the toning on this right steez doesn't fully match the, I guess, like the cooler, slightly less saturated look that you have here isn't the same over here. At least that's not how it shows on my monitor, so maybe that's something to fix and
Hmm.
maybe reduce the brightness just a tad bit. Um, but other than that, I really don't have that much maybe some depth here as well between the two steezes, but that's all I can really think of here to
Yeah.
improve the header.
Background's good. The lighting on him is good. Like, yeah, I like how you didn't add like a brush lighting effect from like the top. Like, you don't need those in headers. Things like I think that's kind of like an old style that kind of needs to disintegrate.
Hmm.
Like just you're getting a really big white brush at like 5 opacity and put it at the top, middle, or whatever. Like all
Yeah,
that, like that needs to go.
yeah, that I need to start phasing it out too, but that definitely does. Well, it's I don't do it as often if I'm starting to
No.
get a better feel for it, but yes, I do agree that's a very prevalent thing to just see a random line, it's almost because
Hmm.
people think it needs to be there for it to be called a good header, but the
Like you don't need a physical light like that to create a light source and create a sort of like perspective of like where light's coming from. Like you don't actually physically need the light to be there, you know?
Mhm. Okay, so yeah, Jeev, very well done on this. I really like this piece, especially for you, since I know you. Just keep up that sort of consistency with how you've set things up here. Don't make every header the same, but the whatever you were thinking on this header, I definitely like where it was headed. So try and
Hmm.
keep that same feel, um, for it. All right, this one, oh, I don't think he gave it to me without the template, the templated stuff.
Hmm.
Let me just help myself out here. This is the reason why you do this in Photoshop. This is the reason. All right. So now that that's a little clearer to see what's what, so this is a header done by I think it's Yusuf, if memory serves me correctly. Header for Crush of the Kings. So first things I will note here is that since you didn't make like the background kind of a monotone purple to match the king's purple, there's a lot it feels like there's a lot more excuse me, stuff going on here that interferes with the foreground, so I would maybe try to make it more monotone in the background to match everything else.
Hmm.
um what do you think, Steven?
I would almost say like I don't mind having like the like normal colors in it, but I would almost like desaturate that a little bit and keep the purples up. So like maybe like make a saturation layer a little lower and like mask it and then paint out like the purple so
Hmm.
it stands out more, but have the rest a little bit desaturated. But I like having like the color in it. Maybe the opacity on the actual header is a little too much, or
Hmm.
the background.
Yep.
So maybe like just stands out too much in general. Maybe it can like be toned down a little bit. But I really like kind of the depth you've created with like the color correction on the person,
Hmm.
as well as like what the particles coming out behind them. It's kind of cool. Can
Yeah.
you zoom in on the text?
Yep. Left side.
Either one.
Yep.
All right, cool. I couldn't tell if it had like like a glow or not.
Now I think you just created this. Might is this? I don't know if this is Photoshop 3. This doesn't look like Photoshop 3D. I don't know what he's. Unless it's just a bevel. I can't. Not
Or like a
exactly sure.
duplicated layer like below it.
Yeah, it just looks really well connected for it being a. Maybe not actually. Now that I look really close at it, I think it might just be a layer move down. Um,
Hmm.
but So I think he's running into like on headers I try and do my best to avoid all the text here being the same color and same style because I think that sort of
Yeah.
makes it a little hard to separate. Now I realize the problem, like the inherent problem in this sort of header is the fact that you have you have like the triple the tri color scheme you're working with is black, purple, and white. So there's not really like an alternate color here that works well. So what I would have
Hmm.
personally done here is maybe keep the Raphael Davis and maybe the socials and the name, excuse me, maybe make them a little thinner, but even more than that, maybe put a box right behind Crush, like a white box here, and then make the Crush text purple, something like that to kind of help separate it a bit. That's something I've started doing more, but what would you do on that? If that annoys you, what would you do on that portion?
I'd probably make his name a different uh typeface maybe or color. I'm trying to think. So one thing that I do with like headers and stuff is I don't really alter the text that much. I just kind of add like depth with colors or like different types of text. So like instead of it bold, it's like regular or something like that. Um, I would definitely make his social media. Probably yeah, his social media is like a different color.
Hmm.
But like here, I don't really know what color I would use because you kind of really limited yourself to purple, black, or white.
Yeah.
Um, is their only color purple?
I think that's their only other color they really use, which is why I was suggesting maybe make the differentiator a non-color based thing outside of like to just align everything properly. That also kind of threw me off a little.
Yeah, that
Aligning
too.
everything to the edges of the C and the H, I think would help stuff there. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's really tough with some of these teams because of that. So
Yeah, it's like the Nets.
yeah, oh yes, yes, yes.
It's just black and white are their only colors. Like they
I
don't have any other colors.
you have a little bit of freedom. You have a little bit more freedom there with the grays. So like maybe here what
Yeah.
I could do is that instead of going with a dark background because you have two darker colors in your palette,
Hmm.
go with a white background and make some cool stuff happen
Yeah,
there.
that's actually probably yeah.
And then that way like you'd put these images in the background at really low opacity anyway probably and just turn up the contrast. So then if you invert the color scheme then the purple and the black together would be no issues there and you probably have a lot more freedom with what you're doing. So maybe
Hmm.
that would be the best move to kind of take the header to the next level. I don't mind the text on the right side. I don't really have an issue with it.
No, it's just kind of like there, so
Yeah.
it's
Uh,
just something extra. It's a nice, actually nice ad for like addition to the header to kind of add more information about the person.
Yep. Maybe then if you're gonna do that, space this left side out a little bit more so it's centered within that space like the pick
Yeah,
info is. That would maybe be my last sort of critique on that.
yeah, I think so too.
Okay, so cool. And then down to our last one. This is a Luca poster done by Dexter or Ayush as some people know him.
Hmm.
Um, so I like the overall composition. I like the different hues of blue and this kind of like metallic. I don't know
Hmm.
whether that was purely from the picture or whether he helped it out at all, but I do like the sort of blue
It
toning
gives you
there.
freedom with making other choices with other color with like the blue. So like in the background, how it's got like the mountain looking thing.
Yep.
Um, it allows you to have a gradient if you have gradients across all of it. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Um, Maybe something I would do is that this middle portion over here with the jerseys looks almost a little too flat. Like it doesn't. The rest of the image is so colored, and then just there's like a strip with nearly no color. I would have.
Yeah.
I don't mind the Luca going black and white, but maybe make the jerseys pop, or at least keep a little bit of blue in them,
Yeah.
to still fit with the overall image.
I agree. I think definitely making the player like his like the skin and hair definitely black and white and keeping the color of the jersey. I actually, I don't, I so the jersey's probably blue.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Maybe I think the jerseys, if they were still white, would work. Maybe maybe it might have been too much with the blue jerseys there with like the background and the foreground. Like I don't know. Maybe that's why I decided to make it black and white.
Yeah, I can see that being a reason to not do. In which case, maybe you don't need to fully let the whole jersey out, but you
Or
would
maybe
just.
just lower the saturation of the whole person,
Yep.
but not get rid of it.
Yep, that's
You
probably
know?
that's what I was gonna suggest. Like maybe with a brush or something, maybe make parts of the jersey more saturated, just so the blue pops a little bit. Otherwise, it's
Hmm.
just a little too much of like a contrast. Like it's not the image
Yeah.
starts to disintegrate a little for me with that. The another thing I'd probably say is that you can find a way to make this text, this like tagline, a better part of the image. I'd say that rather than being all the way at the top left. I don't know how many people would see that, and I feel like maybe you could put like the future is somewhere over here, and then have bright going across and behind Luca, or dude, you can find a way to, I think, make the text more involved, and I
Yeah.
think that would help this if you're gonna include it at all.
Yeah. I think the so like the logo placement, I don't think is bad. Maybe switch it with the text and make the text bigger and like make the futures bright, like the focus of the graphic. But maybe he didn't want the focus to be the text, so maybe that kind of helps. Just put it there, but not really like
Yeah,
have it.
it's not to include all the information. It's not a bad setup, but I feel like, or I guess the reason that I'd want it to be moved out of there and made it more central is because I think that whole idea fits with how he's running the graphic here, and
Hmm.
so it makes sense to me visually to kind of have that text really um push that message out to you of the
That's
future,
true.
of the future being bright, with Luca there, and especially with the bright tones of blue and stuff. I think it makes sense to do that. And with that, maybe make this Luca, the central Luca, more exposed. You can put a little bit more of a. I think he already has sort of a glow behind him, but maybe make his contrast really throw him in the camera raw filter thing again, and kind of make some more details pop out. um,
Hmm.
I think that would help on all of the Lucas, honestly. I think that would
Especially
would
the
help.
back too,
Yeah. Yep.
because they're just kind of flat.
Yeah.
But
Very much
they're
so.
not bad, and I like the kind of the way he treated the back, but like the deep background with just like the logo and the corners and stuff. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the backing of it's really clean. Um. Is it me, or is the tone of the logo? Well, let me zoom in. This doesn't seem. I think he might have put the
I
logo under the same CC or something. Which,
I think it looks like he just put like a tiny brush of thing over it.
yeah. Which I don't necessarily know what I think about that. I might have personally avoided it, but
For like because I don't know like their branding guide or like what they approve of that. I would assume that they don't because you're altering the color of the logo.
yeah.
So I would almost say just don't do that. If you're gonna add anything, add it behind it.
Yeah, that was the same kind of thought I had, because we're definitely told to like not alter the logo much. So it's like
Hmm.
it's not bad for an informal graphic, but once, like, these are the type of things you want to be thinking of if you want to take that next step transition to,
Yeah.
working with the league or any professional entity that cares about their branding and cares that make sure that their designers care about the branding. It's an important step to take there when you're thinking about this stuff. And I mean, in general, with a lot of the graphics that we've been seeing here, like especially the 2K League informational ones, it's the design of it, making it pop, making it look cool, and all that. Very much a part of it and why they pay you. But the
Hmm.
other side of it is also, it has to be a functional graphic, in that the important text needs to be seen clearly. The message
Yeah.
needs to be seen clearly. Like, an example with that Lakers gaming schedule, if people couldn't tell off jump what like the time was and stuff, you've almost lost much of the power that graphic is supposed to have. Um, so
Yeah.
in that sense, it's really important to keep that to keep that in mind. And almost for me, it's like I put all the when I try and do graphics, I put all the information on there first and make sure it's in places where it's readable and stuff. Then you can put the
Hmm.
design and other stuff around it, and that way the line that you kind of that I guess I almost feel like every designer has like a line that they toe with this stuff.
That's
So
true.
at,
Definitely.
at that point that line becomes a lot more functional based than it is design based if you start putting all the cool design stuff then try to fit the info into it because you're almost going to not ruin any of the work you've done before with the design. So
Hmm.
maybe a little flip in the ordering of how people might attack some of these graphics would be useful. um,
Yeah, that might be a better bet if now that I think about it, like definitely something, yeah, along those lines would be so much better than just having, yeah.
yeah. Yep.
Exactly.
All right. So with that, that completes all the graphics we have. So thank you again, Stephen, for coming through and offering your takes on this. I think there's really good
Thanks.
feedback for them to have. It's a longer video, but I think they'll hopefully get a lot from this, and hopefully we start to see a lot of these changes being implemented on it. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah, hopefully I'd love to see a lot of things come out of this for the community and stuff.
yeah. I know
Help
it's
set it up.
especially the teams are I would assume the teams and the league in general I know is like if there's a chance to hire from the community they'll try and take it. So these guys if they're really involved and passionate about this stuff like it's
Oh, definitely.
it's a great opportunity to put yourself out there and give yourself a good shot um
Hmm.
if you're going for that sort of thing. So
Oh yeah.
all right. So with that being said, if you guys have any comments, any feedback of your own, please throw it in the comments and whatnot. If you want your piece in the next episode, be sure to hit me up on Twitter. I'll post a tweet of some sort, asking for submissions. The links to all these guys and for Steven will be in the description of this video. So with that being said, I will see y'all later. Peace.